the screenplay over about 3 months in 2015, and then the more I refined it and the more I worked on it, everybody that would read it and we talked to about says, "Oh my, you need to go back and work on it some more and make the novel." So that's what we did. So I spent the next 2 years after that making it into a novel. So now the screenplay and the novel is done, and the novel's published, luckily. My friend Philip Mantle over in England, Flying Disc Press, it's published through Amazon, and so I'm very grateful for that. Now I just need to find somebody interested in doing the screenwrites for it.
Well, I think it has a lot, going for it. And, I think it actually, I need to get a copy myself. I would love to spend the weekend and read it. I mean, I just, does it go into much like how the townspeople took, the fact that something strange happened like that? I mean, at that time period, they wouldn't even realize what a UFO was.
Right, yeah, the chapters bounce back and forth. Every other chapter is 1897, and every other chapter is 1997. So the 1897 sections, they're very historically accurate as far as what's known, the newspaper account of the time, a lot of the names that were used back then. And I tried to write it from their perspective, how these people that not very long after the Civil War, before the turn of the century, in a little, small, deserted town in North Texas, 20 miles north of Fort Worth, would cope with such a mind-boggling event. A extraterrestrial dropping out of the sky when nothing could fly but birds, how they would deal with that, what they would talk about, what they would think, what they would say, what they would do, how they would wrangle the remains of the craft up with ropes and drag it away with a horse-drawn cart and mules to where they wanted it. So, I tried to imagine and write it as close to historically accurate as I could. And then the 1997 sections, they're more entertaining than anything as far as the two cousins and the girl reporter and the game warden and the sheriff that all, at first they're all sort of clashing with one another, and then in the end they pull together as a team to try to solve the predicament they've got themselves into. So, and you know what? After this is over, you'll have to send me your address. I'll send you an autographed copy. How about that?
Oh, great! I would love it. I mean, I'm really into UFOs ever since. I saw one in New Mexico. That was enough to me to convince me that there's something else out there besides helicopters and jets and airplanes.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that as big as this universe is, that the chances of us being the only intelligent life would be like winning every lottery in every state all in one night.
Oh, yeah. It's really interesting. I was listening today on another show, and people are starting to really get into getting, these ex-military binoculars, infrared, and do stargazing and finding some really strange things. Back in the, around 2000, I ran a couple camera stores, professional stores, and we used to bring in, surplus Russian infrared, binoculars in. And I took one home one time and, at night and stared at the sky, and I started seeing like objects that would zip really fast, come to a dead stop, and then turn, and go another direction. And satellites don't do that. And,
No.
and now it seems it's like in the last few months, people are realizing if you get a pair of infrared binoculars and night gaze, you'll see some real strange things that are totally unaccountable for.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, these night vision goggles, you can see everything in the sky, and there's some things that they're not planes, they're not shooting stars. So it would probably be astonishing how much stuff is up there moving around that can't be explained.
Oh, yeah. A lot. And, it makes me wonder why we never even went back to the moon, that we spent all this money to develop, the capsules, the rocket to go to the moon. We go to the moon a few times, and then we never go back. And then they, stockpiled the Saturn V's for many, many years before they destroyed them. It just makes me wonder, if they're, maybe they ran into something, they just don't, or we're told not to go back to the moon. But it's, like I was telling a guest the other night, it's sure strange. They want to go to Mars, and not go back to the moon. And I would think before we even thought about going to Mars, we would make a camp or something and live on the moon for a while to see how, how things work out, if a man can handle it.
Yeah. Buzz Aldrin has been interviewed several times, and in one of his interviews, he told them that some aliens, some extraterrestrials, had camps on the other side of the moon, not visible from Earth, on the other side that we never get to see. Let's see. As a matter of fact, here is a quote from Buzz Aldrin. Colonel Edwin Buzz Aldrin, Apollo 11 mission, July 1969. It says, "These babies are huge, sir, enormous. Oh, God, you wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, there are other spacecraft out here lined up on the far side of the crater's edge. They're on the moon watching us." And that was a quote from him that was made during the Apollo 11 mission, and he's admitted it several times. So it's amazing the knowledge that has been hidden away and told not to release to the public through the decades. But it's starting to lighten up a little bit. It's starting to come out.
Yeah, but have you noticed that what is coming out is it's like a teaser, right? Like the two Navy pilots that ran into a UFO and they filmed it. They kind of released a little bit of that information out, but as much as they're releasing it, they come back and try to debunk it at the same time. So I don't know if they're trying to slowly condition us that there maybe is life out there other than us walking on our planet.
Yeah, for so long they were afraid that everybody would panic and that the religious sector would collapse and this and that. But now they're realizing that people are smart enough to where they know the real story now. They know the facts. They know that the possibilities of other intelligent beings is just so great that they're not putting forth quite as much effort to hide it and cover it up as they would back in the olden days. But they're still not out there bragging about it either. Now, other countries, a lot of the other countries, South America, over in England, they've released all their UFO files. So it's common knowledge, public knowledge now of sightings and landings and crashes throughout history. I just the other day watched the KGB Russian video where that one craft they found the one that had crashed and was up against the trees back in, I think it was 1968 or 86 or something like that, and it was pretty startling. They found it and they went out there and did a bunch of reconnaissance work around it. I'm sure they hauled it off and found out what secrets they could from it.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Again, too, like in, I think around the late 80s, maybe early, well, no, it was actually in the 90s, in South Africa, that a UFO crashed. And a general was in charge of, recovery, and he claimed that the U.S. government ended up with it.
Oh yeah, and another article that I read just not too long ago was there was a UFO crash in Mexico. I forget the year, but the U.S. called the Mexican government and said, we'll come take care of it. And the Mexican government said, no. So we got this, So they sent a team of Mexicans out there to gather it up, and I think they even loaded it up. And then mysteriously, the U.S. The U.S. said, no, we're coming anyway. So they did. They sent a squadron out there, and mysteriously, when they got there, all the Mexicans were dead. So you know what I think?
What do you think? What do you think happened?
I think the U.S. squadron went down there, killed every one of those Mexicans, and took that saucer because they wanted it. Because knowledge is power, and there's so much knowledge in that they're like, nope, we're taking it. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they went down there, executed every one of them, left them right there, took that saucer, and because they claim, the U.S. forces claim that when they got there, all the Mexicans were dead, but that don't make no sense. Why would they be dead when they've been down there working to load this thing up? They done all the hard work to get it loaded, and then the U.S. went down there and just took it right out from under them.
Well, that's always a possibility. I mean, so many things go on, with the government we don't even realize, which some of it's beneficial to us, but some of it probably, I hate to say it, is not beneficial to us. So, I mean, technology of crashed UFO, getting anything, alien, that and two, making it disappear, it could be another possibility. They just didn't want another country to have, a UFO, and, like Mexico, then all of a sudden the Mexican government could be claim, oh, we got a UFO. Here's pictures of it. Here's all this stuff, right? And release all the information. And then what would it do to our country?
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I've had run-ins with the government, and they're ruthless. So when they want something, they're going to take it, doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, you don't want to. You don't want to. Get their attention. That's the bad part. Now, okay, no. This disc come flying down, hits a water tower, crashes, and do the town people freak out at that point?
Well, it's 6:00 in the morning, April 17th, 1897. A single alien craft, probably a scout, with a gray inside, clips the edge of a fast-moving water tower and slams head-on into the windmill. Clips the edge of a windmill and slams head-on into the water tower in Aurora, Texas, which is just outside of town on this judge's property. Well, the tower explodes, the craft breaks up, and it all goes sailing to the ground in this judge's little flower garden he's planted out there in the middle of all this wilderness. The explosion wakes most everybody in town up, and they're out there and they discover this body and this craft that they have no explanation for, and they figure out pretty quick it's not from this world. So they do what they can. They scoop the pilot up, they give him a proper Christian burial, and they throw the remnants of the craft down an old abandoned well. And that's basically the story. Now, I did elaborate a little bit further on that. I tried to think, okay, what would they do? How would they do? And how they, I even had them put him on the boardwalk in a homemade coffin and take photographs, because even back then, when outlaws or somebody special got killed, they did display them on the boardwalks. They did prop them up on the side and let people look at them. So something this amazing, I would not have been surprised if they didn't do that. So I integrated that in the novel. So, but that's basically the story. It all took place over the events of one day in 1897.
Wow. What happened to the remains of any of the aliens? Have you been able to figure out what happened at all?
Well, UPI, the story had been more or less forgotten. And UPI somehow picked up the story in 1973 and